Hello and welcome to the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan. I am here with my co-hosts Josh and Ethan, and we're here to bring you our top 12 running backs this
Oh, we
week.
got we got more running
Potentially.
backs. Yeah, potential. We'll
Oh,
try to
for
keep it
RB
12,
ones, yeah,
but
RB
we got
ones. We
trust me,
got we got more, but
yeah,
this
we
is our
got
top.
plenty.
This is each of our top 12s that we're going to be running through. On top of that, we might go into RB2s. I don't know if we have enough time. We might.
We'll
But
see. We'll see how we feel.
let's get it kicked off with a little bit of news. Josh, if you want to go ahead and take that.
So obviously,
No, I'm
yeah,
actually gonna.
yes, Ethan, take it over.
Okay, Ethan,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So today is all about running backs. As such, let's talk about running backs. So, we don't know exactly about JT yet, but he might be on the pup list. It's not official yet.
Oh, it's official on Pup.
It's
It-
official.
Oh, he is
yeah,
official. Okay.
it's
About
official on
I
top.
want to say about 20 minutes ago in real time. He just hit the Pup list.
Because
Yeah,
the last update I had seen on him is they were thinking he's going to be pup list, but it wasn't official yet.
I will actually
The
look.
last update was 3 hours ago. No trade from Indy.
Expected
He's now
to remain on the
expected
Pup
to
list.
remain. So yeah, it's not official yet. He is expected though, but we're going to hold a little bit of hope. And that would just mean he misses the first 4 games. Might not necessarily be a bad thing to make sure he's fully healthy. But there's still some issues there. The only other running back news is Josh Jacobs sold out.
Josh Jacobs, 1 year,
Yeah.
12 million. I am assuming there are
It's not terrible.
other.
It's not
it's not
It has
terrible.
to be game day incentives. I'm sure.
Game day
there's a lot
incentives,
of
but
for sure. There has to be some.
I would almost assume that there is also a no franchise tag clause whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's the only way
without
I can
reading
think
it in front of me. But no,
Yeah.
Josh, you want to talk about Arizona really quick? So I'll
Yeah,
kick it to
so-
you, and then we'll start with our top 12.
So obviously today, we are recording this after the deadline has passed for teams to hit their 53-man roster.
Well, the deadline was a few hours ago.
Yeah, deadline was a few hours ago. Thank you.
Being technical.
I did really mix it up there. But the big interesting thing is that the Cardinals cut Colt McCoy, who was supposed to be the starter as Kyler is still recovering back from injury. The fact he is cut.
Well, they said all camp they love Clayton Tune.
Yeah. And it could be the fact that Colt McCoy was just out of gas. Possibly.
Probably.
Could be Clayton Tune's that good. However, this could also very well mean that we are talking about the Arizona Cardinals being the Arizona Fighting Caleb Williamses.
Yep.
And if that's the case, oh boy, am I terrified about drafting Hollywood. I'm terrified about drafting James Conner. Trey McBride is in question.
Whole team is dead.
Yeah, the whole team's kind of dead. And they also just got fleeced in this Isaiah Simmons trade. Like literally just giving him for a 7th.
Well, I mean,
we didn't get to absolutely
QBs, but San Francisco got fleeced too for Trey Lance.
Yeah, we will.
I'm sure y'all talked about that last week.
We actually didn't.
No, because we recorded before the Trey Lance news went down.
Trade?
Yep.
Yeah, but trying to keep it relevant, that was awful. Both of those trades were awful. We're not NFL execs, so they know things potentially that we don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely weird. Like that's the only thing I can say, especially.
I would not run my fantasy football team that way. What about that?
Yeah,
is that fair?
It sounds like Jerry Jones would run it that way.
Yeah, I don't think anybody with a right mind would run it that way.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't give him another year, considering what Green Bay's doing this year with Jordan Love. And it's like, look, you sat behind for 3 years. Now we're going to see what you got. And I really do believe that the emergence of Brock Purdy really threw a wrench into things. So if anything, it feels more like the Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady situation back in the day, rather than Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers.
The only thing that's different is it wasn't a 3-man mess. It was just Bledsoe and Brady.
That's
and
true.
He just beat him out. But now I think this one is messier because it's not like a guy just beat him out. Like, there are 3 dudes there, and you're talking about Mr. Irrelevant, a QB who's gone to a Super Bowl, and then, Trey Lance, who's got a ton of raw potential, and Mr. Irrelevant beat both of them out.
Yeah. Beat both of them out, which now that goes, I want to know what happened, like why they picked Trey Lance, because knowing that Brock Purdy is now the starting quarterback of the Niners, it 100% makes me believe that Mac Jones was going to be the pick at 3.
It might have been.
And I think they chickened out and then picked Lance, especially over Mac Jones and Fields. So that
maybe it'll happen, and then it just didn't. Big time, spectacular fail. And the 49ers suck. And with that, top 12?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing we also have to mention, I think why people will always give Trey Lance credit, and I think why you shouldn't totally drop him yet, is the fact that he lost a whole year due to the pandemic as far as reps. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, he plays 1 game in a monsoon and then fractures his ankle. So it's not like a situation.
He has less reps than Bryce Young, and they're the same recruiting.
Exactly. And
less than half.
Yeah, less than half. So the fact that it remains is like there's no wear and tear. So it's a lot more of a you're washed rather than you're an unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting situation. Then our last piece of news is that JT, Jonathan Taylor, supposed to be on the PUP for the next 4 years, which he highlights a very big issue I think that's happened within the last month, dealing with the running backs. And basically, as a lot of us have called it, the running back strike. So, gentlemen, before I get into this, I kind of wanted to go into a path before we give our top 12 of how we got here. So here's the question I want to ask you. What are the things that caused the running back position to be the way it is today?
Ooh, I can give a little piece of that.
Go for it.
I think that's just how football is trending now. It's very much passing game oriented. The passing game is where it's at now, not running back and defense. Now, you're running, 15 years ago, it was all running back and defense would win you championships. Now it's how well you can pass the ball. And I mean, that's where the game is. So I think running backs are being kind of undervalued now, or their value is going down because of this trend. So that may be just a little piece of it. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that are factoring in. But that's my 2 cents.
Okay, E, what would you what do you think?
I mean, I think it's just the evolution of the game. You go back to the pass was invented in the 40s? Probably, I think it was 1943. And that's what changed the rules of the game. I don't know. It's in Bill Walsh's book, The Scoreboard Takes Care of Itself. Highly recommend. But it's in there, and how much it evolved from there. I think the position groups just evolved with it. And so when you put more emphasis on, oh, hey, we can throw the football, that leads into you put your money where your mouth is. So you're investing in what's important. And I think it's just gone so far that there hasn't been like a rebalancing yet. Because in my opinion, I agree with a lot of the running backs. I think they are just as important, if not more important, than wide receivers, and get just about as many, touches and yards as them, and take a lot more damage than they do. So I think maybe not compensated the same, because I do think that wide receivers are a lot flashier and make bigger plays than running backs. I do think that the gap should be closer, whereas you have your top wide receivers are making 20 mil a year somewhere.
Cooper Kupp right now is 26 a year.
Yeah, So anywhere from, I'd say if you're a top tier wide receiver, you're making anywhere from 20 to 26 a season. Now your highest paid running back is Saquon, who's making 14. Maybe we can bump that number up to, I'd say like anywhere in the 18 to 19 range would be fair for our tier 1 running backs. But I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I definitely think you should pay your wide receivers more, but there should be a closing of the gap, especially for taking all that damage.
Okay.
Just to keep it short.
I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. I enjoyed both those answers because I had a firm like stranglehold on like, yeah, that's exactly it, or this is not it. So let me start off with this. What if I told you that the NFL being a passing league, it might be the greatest lie ever told?
Probably.
Okay. Here's why I bring
convince
this up.
us.
So I decided to look, you know what? There has to be a major discrepancy between either run plays called or either like run plays versus pass plays within the last 10 years. So I basically used from 2022 to 2012. That's kind of where the whole conversation shifted. Would y'all care to agree, disagree on just that time period?
Sure.
So let me tell you the difference between 2022 and basically 2012. If we're going to call 2022 the passing league, 2012 is where it's kind of balanced. The difference is literally one extra carry a game. Like, no, not a game, a season. So, but the per game average is about one less per game. So that's it. Goes from about 430 per team to about 412 back in 2012. So teams are actually running the ball more, funny enough, than in 2012. So I was like, okay, maybe it's the type of passes. This stat I did find interesting. Did you know that roughly 30% of Patrick Mahomes' passing stats last year, as far as passing attempts, were RPOs and play action passing? So I went, that's interesting. Just because if it's a play action or an RPO, the threat of a run game has to be present. So that means 70% of his passing attempts was roughly drop back, but a still huge integrated part of the game is still play action passing. It's a pretty big chunk. However, it wasn't the truth with almost every quarterback. Hurts was like around 35%, something right to that amount. Josh Allen really low. So I was like, okay, that's kind of based on offenses. Then so it's like, okay, now passing attempts, passing numbers, nothing out of the ordinary. It's very much dependent on scheme. So what's causing the running back issues? So that's where I went, okay, maybe they're just drafting them way later. They're finding success. So I went back 10 years to see the top 10 running backs and see where they got drafted. Most of them, don't have the exact number here, but most of them were round 2. Not round 1, but round 2. And the only year where it really got like funky, you're looking at 2024 and I'm not 2024, 2014 and 2016. Whereas you had a round 1 running back be number 1, but then RB2 was Jordan Howard, round 5, DeMarco Murray, round 3, Jay Ajayi, round 5, like names that kind of just fizzled out, right? But besides that, last year's top 10 running backs goes as this, along with their running back draft order. Josh Jacobs was round 1. King Henry, round 2. Nick Chubb, round 2. Saquon, round 1, top 5. Miles Sanders, round 2. Dalvin Cook, round 2. Justin Fields was technically as far as the top rushing numbers, but he was round 1. CMC was in that list. He was round 1. ETN, round 1. The only one below round 2 was Aaron Jones last year, as far as top 10, which is round 5.
So he was round 5 for Aaron Jones.
Yeah. So now think of it this way. That means like your top running backs in the league are teams are spending high value on them. So why are they not getting paid? And two, why is the narrative being spread out that you can get a running back later? Whereas there's only been 2 out of the 10 years I looked at where there was a discrepancy as far as where you're finding players. So I found that interesting. Then I thought, you know what? For a long time, I thought maybe the Steelers had something to do with it, with not only how they treated Le'Veon Bell, but the 2010 Steelers and James Harrison really forcing a lot of rule changes as far as defenseless receiver, like unnecessary roughness, that kind of sort. Penalties are literally within a variance of maybe give or take 5 to like 7 penalties per season. So nothing crazy in that regard. So all of this to say, and I mean, the last thing I even looked was within the last 3 years was average depth of target. Nothing too crazy. The only things I could actually go back to understand why running backs are viewed the way it is I think you look at Le'Veon Bell, a lot of the running backs that just fizzled out, and that causing a large kind of like stink on the position. Very possible. I do think now receivers and quarterbacks and even DBs have gotten a lot smarter due to the kind of innovation of 7-on-7 leagues, and especially in high school. But besides that, within the NFL being a passing league, and also that running backs are just devalued, period, might actually just be a giant lie. The fact that I couldn't find a sticky stat to say, oh, this is why running backs are down, only proves that maybe this is the natural progression of the game, which means it can flip at a moment's notice. The only thing that I have potentially found that might be interesting to look at within a fantasy perspective is how we view who is a long-term back and who is a short-term back. And I think that will actually give you a lot more peace of mind. And it completely affected how I looked at running backs from now on. I even told a little bit.
Josh, that sounds like bad faith. Who's your running back one?
My running back one, 100% in tier 1 is CMC.
I agree with that. And just a comment on that. We lost Ethan.
We did lose Ethan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think he just didn't like your pick.
See, I didn't like your pick.
You did that.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, just a comment on that. I applaud you for doing that research, by the way. You know, that's really interesting that there was no real correlation. Like it wasn't backed up.
It shocked me. To be quite honest with you, it shocked me.
That is really interesting, and I would personally like to look into that. So if you want to show me that research,
yeah, I'll show you all the links that I looked through.
Because I would love to look at that. I'm very much a staff.
No, that's nothing but bad faith. CMC is RB1 undisputed.
Yeah. So yeah. I just want to point out something. It's off topic, but on topic for our top 12. So I went through and I looked at a couple of contracts for my top 7. And out of my top 7, 5 of them are free agents next year. 5 of them.
Interesting.
So that brings into question, is there going to be like a flooding of the market for running backs next year? Like, did they just delay by Barkley, Jacobs, Pollard? They all signed 1-year contracts. That's it.
I don't think so. I think the fight's going to keep going, and that they're all going to get re-signed to better deals.
I think they will go better deals because I think especially with the Bills and a few other teams, I think we're going to hit a point of going, oh, running backs are really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really are. They're key to your team, but a lot of running backs don't make it past their first contract, either being healthy or having favor with the team or whatnot. You make it past that first contract, and your first year or two, they look at you real hard as to your longevity on the team. So, I'm for two of these backs, I'd say, maybe even three, you know, I'd be concerned. But I don't know. We can go ahead and get into our top 12 if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all agreed CMC RB1, but the reason, and I want to bring up all the kind of the research I just brought up, and because of CMC, what defines for me a long-term back and a short-term back is receiving ability. Like that is the clear delineating factor. Because if you can catch the ball out of the backfield, that also makes you a receiver, which is what we started noticing San Francisco do last year. And to now that we bring up, there's two rookies, especially in this latest NFL draft, that I rated, I think, way higher than what a lot of people would suggest, because of the fact that they are going to be a long-term solution at that position, because of the flexibility that brings them, not only being able to run the ball, but also catch the ball as well. And to me, it screams positionless football, and that we're about to get to that point on offense. Defense has hit that probably since 2015. Offense has finally hit its point where it's going to happen. To the point where I say, if you're just a middling wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and you can't provide any value, like running the ball or anything like that, you're on the chopping block. So, for example, like Hollywood, like I'm trying to think of like a couple other receivers off the top of my head, like even Michael Pittman, if he can't like really perform this year, there's a few of those receivers that are going to fall to the wayside very fast if they can't provide something other. Either you have to be the elite of the elite when it comes to receiver to just primarily play receiver, or you have to provide positionless flexibility. So I think that is kind of the phase that we're entering to. We already said CMC is 1. I am ready to bring up running back 2, which for me is Austin Ekeler.
Same.
Nick Chubb.
He is running back 3 for me. I struggled. I struggled on this one.
There's no Kareem Hunt. That's the only reason why. He's getting the pass catching work. We know he's got hands. Nick's gonna have an improvement this year.
So I
don't want to tell you what I have him at.
Oh no, Ryan, no.
I have him at running back. I have him at running back 8.
It's all right. Being wrong is fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes
hey,
you're right.
I said this near the end of last year. I don't think that Nick Chubb makes it into the top 5 this year.
Passing.
And I stand by it.
I get why you're saying that though, Ryan. Just because we really did see Deshaun Watson he's going to push the ball down the field or create opportunities for himself. So I think that is very much an issue. Even though Kareem Hunt is not there, they just have a bevy of running backs, including and still trading for them because they just picked up.
Who do they have behind Nick Chubb that they're going to send plays their way over Nick Chubb?
Over Nick Chubb, so they have Demetric Felton, Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford's more of a receiving guy.
Neither of those players are going to get the receiving work though.
It's not so much
they might be relief runners, but they're not going to get the receiving work.
Part of the issue is that I think Cleveland will make an attempt at using their receivers more. So they paid Njoku a lot of money. They picked up Elijah Moore. Cedric Tillman.
Elijah Moore has experience doing that with the Jets.
But they're still going to be a running football team. They're not going to change their entire offense.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change their entire offense. I still think Ekeler
they gave Deshaun weapons, and he needed it. but there's still going to be a run first football.
But team. That's just I'm standing by it. I don't think Nick Chubb is a top 5 this year. That's just me.
So let's put that on the hot take meter. We already have 2. Yeah. That's the second one we've added.
Hot take. Go ahead and mark that one down really quick, Josh. Hot take. Nick Chubb, not top 5. Ryan. Because we didn't keep track of hot takes last year, and we are going to this year and hold people accountable.
I have it down.
Oh, there we go. There's an off-season episode, the Shame podcast.
Do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, Ethan, you want to know the other one on the list? I had Okonkwo at tight end 4.
This Shame podcast is going to be fun for me.
It might legitimately be legendary. But
no, just with the receiving uptake, that's why I see him.
I could totally see him at running back too. 100%.
At 3.
Who you have it?
I think you said Barkley was your 2. He's my 3.
Oh, yeah, so Barkley's my 3.
I have Barkley at 4.
Oh, psych. Well, backtrack and Ryan, who's your 2?
Austin Eckler. I said that.
Yeah, Eckler was my 2 as well.
Yeah.
Eckler at 2. Okay. And who's your 3, Ryan?
Barkley.
Okay, so we all got Barkley there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Saquon, I still think is going to be a major part of that offense, even with the receiving weapons, even with Darren Waller there. Yes, they will pass the ball more, but I do think Saquon's going to be more efficient.
He was everything
I agree.
Last year. We thought Dabble was going to help unlock him as well as keeping him healthy, and that's exactly what happened. I don't see it changing.
Yeah, exactly.
I can agree with that. I'm still kind of upset I traded him.
Mm-hmm.
Get wrecked.
Hey, man, I still got good value out of that. I ain't going to lie.
All right, RB4s. I've got Jacobs. Josh Jacobs.
Okay, I got Jacobs at 5.
This is where I start getting a little. I have King Henry at 4.
Okay.
Just because.
Without injury, yeah. No.
Yeah, there's.
He'll
yeah.
But Derrick Henry has the potential to go from anywhere up to 3, all the way down to 10.
Yeah.
Like if he's injured for any point this year,
it doesn't matter if he's averaging 40 points a game again.
Exactly.
Yep. It's just.
But my number 4 is Bijan.
Bijan is my 6.
Ryan. It's okay.
I have a lot of hope for the rookie.
He's the most hyped, and he's going to be good, but I don't know.
He might be overhyped. He might be, but until he actually gets out there and starts
but he hasn't
playing,
played football, so I know. Say he hasn't played football.
Well, he's been playing football for quite a while.
Then you are going to hate my running back 7.
Yeah, and every fat kid in Kansas has been playing football for a long time. They're not top 4 running backs.
That's true.
Top 3.
Okay.
My 5th running back is Henry. Unless we want to talk more about Bijan, I'm fine doing that too.
Well,
yes.
My 5th was Saquon, and then Henry was my 4th. Bijan's my 6th. So we're kind of in the same range. It's just one spot lower. Nothing too crazy on the variance there.
Yeah. See, I've got Bijan at 4, Jacobs at 5, and Henry at 6.
Okay, yes. And
6 is where I have Bijan. So I have Henry 5 and then Bijan 6.
I have Bijan at 6 as well.
I think that's just like a fair kind of healthy range to put him. Like, we know he's going to be good, but I don't know if we can say, it's totally fair to put a rookie in the top 5. Because look at Dameon Pierce and Ken Walker last year.
Brees, they were, for that matter.
And Brees, like they were all 3 incredible, but they're
and
top 15 running backs. And of course, Brees played into that.
If Brees had an entire year where he was healthy, I'm sure he would have cracked the top 5. I'm sure. I'm
He was on that
100%
kind
sure
of
he would
pace.
have.
Yeah, he was on that kind
He
of
was on the
pace.
pace too.
He was
So
definitely as advertised.
the reason why I don't have Bijan tomato higher is largely because I do think there is a rookie learning curve. And then once the bye week happens, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because Atlanta just did it with Desmond Ridder.
Mm-hmm.
And we are begging for Desmond Ridder to come in earlier to where we had Ridder watch for all of
we're
last
gonna have
season.
Bijan watch.
Yeah, because I still think they will rely on Cordero Patterson and Algier for a little bit, and then Cordero and Bijan will flip.
I think CP is going to be primarily receiver,
Yeah,
which is hard because Mac Hollins looked good.
Mac Hollins is shredded.
He was on the trend for sure.
Yeah, no, they have plenty of options, and I think that's kind of the biggest thing, especially. I mean, even add Kyle Pitts to that mix. This is something I asked you about where they've been playing Kyle Pitts. So
everywhere.
Yeah, literally everywhere. So
it's probably been in the back. I just haven't seen it.
I do think there will be some games where Bijan kind of gets used to it, and then it'll just click.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
moving on from Bijan, then 7.
Give me your 6 through 10.
Oh,
I mean 7 through 10. 7 through 10. My mistake.
Oh, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll
or do you want me to go?
My 7 through 10. I mean or 12 actually for that matter. Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, ETN, Tony Pollard, Najee, and James Cook.
Oh, he's
interesting.
For Cook. Go ahead, Ryan.
Interesting.
He's at the very end. He's at the very end. Trust me, I did not put him in top 4.
Okay. Where was Tony Pollard on yours?
Tony Pollard was 10.
Yeah.
Okay. See, Tony Pollard is my 7. Then I have Nick Chubb at 8. I have Joe Mixon at 9.
Mm-hmm.
And Miles Sanders at 10.
Okay. I will tell you, I have Mixon and Sanders. Oh, yeah.
And 11 and 12 are Aaron Jones and Kenneth Walker.
Okay.
So all the ones that I literally Mixon, Walker, crap, I forgot who else you said, but literally any of the ones I didn't mention, they're all high tier 2. So it wasn't like a huge difference.
Yeah.
If I just had
James
12.
Yeah, and see James Cook and Najee are up there, like high RB2s for me. So and Jahmyr Gibbs is a honorary 13th. Like he was in my top 12 until Kenneth Walker kicked him out.
7, I had Eckler.
Okay.
8, I had Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
9, I had ETN.
Okay.
10, I had Pollard. 11, I have Dameon Pierce.
Okay.
And 12, I have JT.
Ooh, so okay. So I've been really struggling with JT.
Man, I see.
I think he'll still be top 12. I think even if he misses 4 games, he'll still be top 12.
My issue is that I think it's more.
He's playing for a contract. Just like why I believe in Josh Jacobs. He's playing for a contract. And Pollard, he's playing for a contract.
Yeah, and at least they all signed. But when literally the Colts have already said we're not paying you, there's literally no point in Jonathan Taylor to play. That's what makes the situation very different.
But here's the thing: he's playing for his money next year. So even if that's not with the Colts, as he goes into free agency, he wants to say, "Yeah, I missed 4 games. I was still a top 12 running back in this league. This is what I want."
Yeah, I really do believe that
he'll just be saying it to his next team.
Yeah, I think the Colts trade him this year. I think I've hit that point. With Jonathan Taylor, because I think one team is going to get desperate, and if they lose a star running back, they're like, "Look, I am willing to sacrifice a second or a third right now. Let's pull the trigger, get it done." Because now the issue
it has to be 2 twos.
See, but so here's the issue I have with the Colts here. The Colts are on the verge of letting him walk for free. And if they do that, it might be the end of Ballard. Like, legitimately.
Well, not necessarily, because they can always franchise tag him. And he can choose not to play, but
oh, you're talking about for next year, right?
Yeah.
So they could do that, but then like JT could do something to at least void it. So there is an avenue to where JT is still a free agent next year. The issue why I think they should trade him now is because if you're trying to get a first round pick but not give the first round money to him, you're just trying to have their cake and eat it too, or however the saying goes. I do think they're on the verge of, like, especially in midseason, I think a lot of teams and organizations have really taken advantage of that trade deadline because you can get a player for like way cheaper than you think, depending on how that team is. So imagine if the Colts are like 3-7 by the time the trade deadline rolls around. They're out of playoff contention. There's nothing much they can do. Anthony Richardson looks promising at least, so you have to get the assets to make him better. You have JT right here. Imagine if JT just doesn't play. And I think that's very well within the realm of possibility. If that's the case, you're going to accept a 1 second round pick or 1 or 2 fourths or 1/3 or something of way lower in value than what you were thinking
like a second. I think no one's getting him for just a second.
Yeah,
it could be 2 2s. It could be a second, and I mean, your best case scenario.
It's probably like second 2/3 maybe.
Yeah, to me, that's where I'm going. I'm looking at Miami is when Mozart has an injury history, Jeff Wilson has an injury history, A-Chain now
we
injured.
already know what this story is going to be with Miami. Like, it's going to be the same as every year. Mostert's going to go down first. So then you're going to have Myles Gaskin. You're going to have A-Chain.
No, and Gaskin one got of those. Cut.
No, Jeff Wilson.
Oh yeah, Jeff Wilson. So you're going to have Jeff Wilson and A-Chain. One of those two is going to get hurt. And it's like, okay, listen, we've got one guy who's held together with Scotch tape. Do we want a healthy JT for a second and a third round pick, maybe a second 2/3, second a third?
Well, and see, that's why. That's when they just go up and pick up Fournette and have him be your third down back.
Ryan,
and then just
Ryan, look at me, Ryan.
Do you really want to go down that route?
No.
I mean, hey.
No.
Hey, Ryan, he's a decent downhill runner.
Look at me, Ryan.
What?
JT or Lenny? What are we even talking about?
Look,
if you're giving up your firstborn to get JT,
but you're not. See, that's
you could draft. But you could draft. But you could draft next year a running back.
Right now, it's your firstborn. So before the trade deadline, they will settle for less because it's whatever you give them or nothing.
That is true.
Yeah, and so that's the issue. And the thing with Fournette is Fournette schematically isn't really that good of a fit with that McDaniel Shanahan outside zone kind of scheme. Taylor would actually fit that because he's that good of a back.
Yeah.
So now, so that's why I'm looking at Indianapolis going, you have one shot. You better make it count. I don't think you're getting a first. You better be happy with a second. So basically, the trade evens out because you drafted JT in the second round. But Miami has shown we don't care about picks. We just traded 45 of them to get Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, and whoever else. Which Trey Lance trade is, if you see what the picks ended up being.
Yeah, that was a big time mess up.
So everything that came from that trade was Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Waddle.
That's what came from the trade. Yeah. That's God. I feel bad. I feel so bad for them.
Wasn't the third round pick Javon Holland too?
No.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
I know those are the only 3 players from that trade.
Yeah, so but going back to this whole running back discussion, the issue with JT is how do you view JT? And JT right now, I feel like he's a short-term back in Indy. But I do think
But he's
that
somebody's future.
he's somebody's future.
Yeah.
And you're just
Yes.
like Ethan, considering you have JT, I am holding on to him, and it's going to be a CMC situation where he gets traded to a contender and let's ride. And then you go, oh, hey, I don't think the problems were CMC. Like the injury history, like I told everyone about Matt Rule, different story. But I think that's what we're going to end up with Jonathan Taylor.
No,
and then
I really do agree. I think he's a CMC situation. I think that's the best comparison you can make.
Yep. So, I mean, let's talk about who else on JT, since I know I think if JT starts playing, he'd be tier 1 for me. It's so many unknowns is why I put him in tier 2.
Totally fair. That's my hot take. JT's the top running.
ETN, even with Bigsby, is going to be used way more.
Well, and here's the thing. Fun. This is what I told you before last year's draft when Travon Walker went number 1. Oh, so technically 2 years ago now. So 2 years ago when I told you Travon Walker was going to go number 1 overall. When the GM says something, the team moves heaven and earth to make it happen.
Yes.
So when the GM says, I want ETN to rush for 1,600 yards, guess what their focus is going to be? Getting ETN the ball to run.
Yep.
That's what it is, So I think they're going to shift a little bit because they put a lot on T-Law. And I think what they realized last year is, man, we just keep putting this guy under pressure and he's good, but it's not going to work if we can't find more ways to help him. And I think ETN is that help.
Yeah,
my issue is longevity with him, like lasting throughout the season. Because you saw all those carries in the early part of the season and probably about midway through. His production kind of started hurting, and it started going down a little bit.
I think what you're saying, Ryan, is something Ethan and I said when we did our rookie month running back episode, was you have to be comfortable with a 2 running back system to where, he may not be getting like 18, 20 points a game, but if you can get 15 points a game for 17 straight weeks, you're going to be okay with that. And I think we're at that point with ETN, Kenneth Walker, Dameon Pierce. I would even include in that category, like a lot of even the Lions and Falcons included there. I rather take the point dip with the longevity rather than Icarus for like 8 weeks.
Because he had
the only dip he took was from week 12
was right after
bye.
Yeah, because he got hurt during the Ravens game.
Yeah, he got hurt in the Ravens game and then came back fully against Dallas.
Yeah,
and it was like some minor like hamstring thing or calf.
It wasn't crazy.
He had some pretty good games.
But also
the Denver game, Las Vegas, and Houston.
I think now
that was his rookie year.
He was.
But I also think taking it's Tank Bigsby, right?
Yeah, Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, giving him the ball a couple of times is probably going to do him well. ETN.
Yeah,
it's going to benefit him.
Absolutely.
And I think that's their plan: is take hits off of ETN, but let ETN plays.
I just don't know. I don't know if he's really high for me. Like he could probably mix in there with.
I mean, he's
the last like 5 guys on my roster, on my top 12 roster. He could mix up in.
And that's all I'm saying too. Is like he's up there. He's not the guy, but he's going to be up there.
Yeah, he'll be used for sure. I do want to talk. Oh, go for it, Ryan.
Oh, I was going to talk about Miles Sanders because did you guys have him in your top 12?
I have a tier 2. He's actually the second player in tier 2 for me.
Okay, I have him pretty high, just because I've heard a lot of good things about him.
Panthers online.
Yeah,
and I understand that. I understand that, but he's being used for everything. Now that can be a boon, but that can also be against him because
week 1. That's all. Week 1 is going to be your indicator for how the season is going to go.
Yeah.
I definitely. And oh, go ahead.
I was going to say with Miles Sanders, I think I agree with Ethan. Like, week 1 is going to be the barometer, which is why I'm not overpaying for or overdrafting from Miles Sanders.
So, and let me tell you why week 1 is a good hitter, because Atlanta's a team that's still trying to find itself. They're not established yet. So you're going to go up against a team that's somewhere towards the end of the middle of the pack. You know, kind of that team we're trying to find our identity. They're not a top team, but they're not a bad football team. They're just figuring things out. So if you can go up and play Atlanta and look good, I think that speaks well for how well they're going to do this year, because they've got some easy wins on their schedule, just like everybody else. You know, I don't think the Panthers are a bad football team, but if you go up against Atlanta and just get slammed, that's not. I don't want him on my team. And I like Miles Sanders too. I loved him last year. He's part of why I won my chip in the GCC league. But and just the but.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he commands that backfield. That's a big boon for me.
Yeah, and I totally think the opportunity is there for him to be tier 1, but you're gonna. There's just a lot of what ifs, especially like how does Bryce Young play.
Here's what's hard about running backs. We could list one reason for every single of the top 20 running backs why they could be in the top 10.
Oh yeah, like I definitely.
Period.
Yeah, for real.
So
for real, yeah.
It's just tough, and it's just about how they come out. You know, like you see it every year, a guy that should be it, and he just doesn't come out. You know, and it's just a team dynamic, and it's part of why fantasy football is fun, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you really don't. And that's a PSA to everybody. Yeah. Like you could be the most knowledgeable person in fantasy football, and you'd probably be right, or you'd probably be right like a small percentage of the time.
And
you might get lucky.
The oblong ball you might moves get in mysterious ways.
It does. All hail the oblong ball.
All hail the oblong ball. So I want to talk about Tony Pollard before we hit. I mean, we talked about Najee a little bit. I mean, obviously a volume play. How are we feeling with Tony?
I did like how Kenny Pickett looked though.
Hey man,
and I'll say about Najee.
I have a bigger hot take at receiver, but we'll leave that.
We'll save that for the receiver episode.
Yep. So
Pollard, I like how he was used last year, and I think with Ezekiel Elliott out of the way, he's going to get a lot more. He could possibly get a lot more goal line work and a lot more rushing work.
Just don't break your leg, Tony.
Yeah, and he was very efficient in his rushing ability last year. So
and explosive. That's the only thing.
Very explosive.
He was just explosive, and Zeke wasn't. That's why he's still there.
I am concerned about is that
what?
I'm interested in how this Brian Schottenheimer fit is going to happen at OC. I was talking to Pat about this, where I went, now thinking about it, I think Kellen Moore was just not the right fit, period. Because Kellen Moore is going to love Justin Herbert that goes, I can basically kill you from any part of the field in one throw. And with Dak, that's not the case. You kind of need him to be in rhythm.
Yeah, you had to set. I was just about to say, Dak is the kind of QB where you have to set up and then go get it.
Exactly. And so with Brian Schottenheimer, it's kind of similar. It's different, but yet pretty similar as far as mentality from the QBs. And I'm really basing this off of the 1 year he was the OC for Russell Wilson, where they really prioritized running the ball and then deep crossers, essentially.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, can Dak adjust to that? But how they use the running backs. They kind of use the running backs in they just kind of downhill running, but that's always been Pete Carroll style. So I'm really intrigued to see how they use Tony Pollard this year. I think he's kind of in the Eckler CMC model of I think he's going to get a big chunk of his points off of receiving work, largely because I don't think they trust Jalen Tolbert whatsoever to be wide receiver 3, which is why they grabbed Brandon Cooks to be wide receiver 2. Obviously, CD at wide receiver 1, but your wide receiver 3 for this team is probably going to be Tony Pollard. And so that's why I
Well,
still
I was
had
going
him
to
at.
say they're tight end. They're tight end.
Oh, Ferguson
Ferguson?
and Schoonmaker, Peyton Hendershot.
Yeah.
I like Schoonmaker.
The all name team for tight ends is in Dallas.
I don't know,
Okay.
Musgrave pretty good in Green Bay.
Oh yeah, Musgrave is a good one. Okay, so
Not as good
know
as the video I
have.
sent you yesterday, Josh. You
Oh
see that?
yeah, yes, I did. That was
is
wonderful.
Okay, I'll send that to you, Brian.
All right, I do
Yes,
want to
please.
ask because I want this to transition into our tier 2. Where do y'all have James Cook? Obviously, I have him at 12. I know I'm higher on him than most. Where do y'all have him now?
He's top 2 and RB2 for me.
Okay, E for you.
I'd have him a bit lower. I mean, it's so hard because he hasn't been anything yet. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's the guy in Buffalo, but I mean, you're competing with people like. Let me just pull up a list of guys he's competing with. He's competing with Ramondre in tier 2. He's competing with Joe Mixon in tier 2. He's committing with potentially not on my list, but on your list, Dameon Pierce. He's competing with Ken Walker. He's competing with Aaron Jones. He's competing with Miles Sanders, Alexander Madison, Javonte Williams, like Breece Hall, even.
Breece Hall.
So if it's my list,
same.
I'm taking all these guys over him because I don't see it yet, and I didn't see it in the preseason. I know he had very limited snaps, but from the limited snaps I saw in preseason, he didn't have it.
No, that's
where
fair.
Jahmyr Gibbs,
that's fair.
Jahmyr Gibbs had it.
Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan in a few plays, you went. That's
Bijan looked good. Hank Bigsby looked good.
Yeah.
So,
I also think with James Cook is he potentially might be the one player where you go, oh wow, I didn't realize he was this consistent. Like
he's going to be a top tier flex guy.
Yeah, he may not set the world on fire, but you're going to end up looking back and go, wow, he ended up really high on the list.
So it's not like, oh man, who am I going to put RB1? Who am I going to put RB2? But he's a guy I think you can throw as your flex, and he's going to get you like 14 points, and you're going to be fine with that.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be consistent enough to where he is in this tier 1 conversation, but I totally
maybe
see
next year. I haven't seen it yet. That's why I don't want to get so hyped up on Bijan and Jahmyr. I haven't seen it yet. And what I have seen in preseason, he didn't look as good as a lot of these other guys.
Yeah, I do think that's also Buffalo as a whole looked very lackluster. So that's something where
they got a lot of snaps, and
Oh yeah, that's my other hot take. I also said that. I said, Ethan, you missed it, but I said Buffalo won't make the playoffs.
Oh, did you write it down?
I did write it.
Yeah,
I did write it down. Yeah,
okay.
Hey, trust me, I am writing all of them down. So, I mean, you brought up a couple people I have in my tier 2 as well. Initially, I had Ramondre in tier 1 before.
I did too, and then I swapped him as well.
Yep, I swapped him as well. I think a couple people we haven't named yet. Rachaad White, J.K. Dobbins.
I was just going to bring him up.
I really don't like Tampa Bay running backs. I think they're both going to be too stepping on each other's toes for either of them to be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Ryan, because I think you and I are on the
was
same
going to
page
say,
here.
where do y'all have Alvin Kamara?
So Kamara is going to be tier 2
He's
for
going
me.
to be tier 2. Yeah, towards the end.
Well, I say that.
Interesting. Towards the end, he's only missing what?
3 games. He's only missing 3 games, and now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
it's
3
3.
games.
Yeah, it's only 3.
Let me go to Vegas and beat some people up too. If I'm only going to get a 4 game season, are you kidding me? Or 3 games?
I'm really thinking. I'm really switching. I'm debating right now Kamara and James Cook, because I would put Kamara in that last spot at tier 1.
But dude, Kendre Miller looked good. I liked Kendre Miller this season. I know he got a little banged up at the end, but
Kendre's the future.
Okay,
like he will take over for Kamara for sure.
So You wanted to talk about JK?
I mean, yeah, we talked about Kamara, we talked about
Yeah.
Pierce a little bit. Let's go with JK because
Do you want to end on that?
No, I have one more.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
after
one
we
more
do
to bring up.
JK, I've
Okay.
got one more.
All right, let's do it. JK, go ahead, Josh. This is your
So, I don't think JK is going to set the world on fire like people say.
Mm-hmm.
I just think if he's any amount consistent, that's it. Like that's all you need to see from J.K. Dobbins. I mean, he's getting drafted like 5th, 6th round, which I think is like really perfect for his potential. I have him in the mid to low tier 2. He would
I
have to
think
have
that's
a few
accurate.
spike games in order for him to jump into tier 1 conversation. I just don't see it with the amount of weapons and the amount of commitment to the passing game the Ravens will have, because his best shot was the Greg Roman offense, period.
Yeah, and that with their new OC, they're not going to be as run focused as they were in recent years. I think they're still going to have the run game, obviously, but also Lamar Jackson is RB1 there. He's going to be that running back.
That's the thing I do believe will change, though, because I think they're going to a lot of the short yardage areas for Lamar. I actually do believe they're not going to put Lamar in that situation, and I do think they're going to say, "Hey, we have running backs here. We have a giant bruising back in Gus Edwards. If you don't want to use JK, but JK's goal line efficiency is kind of insane. So he's always been able to find the end zone. So to which that's where I think they will take Lamar out of those situations and go more traditional in that aspect. But I still don't think that's enough to put him in tier 1 conversation.
Yeah, no, I don't think JK is going to be a RB1.
Yeah,
he's mid to low RB2 for me.
Yeah, so I have a couple other players. I mean, we talked about. I don't think we talked about Kenneth Walker all that much, but I mean, obviously, we initially had him tier 1, and then the Seahawks said, "LOL, Zach Charbonnet." So
I mean, just high tier 2 for me.
High tier 2.
Once
sure.
I think he's going to be ready week 1. It's going to be his show.
Yeah.
See, he was low tier 1 for me. Low tier 1. Just because.
So,
no, I said I could see that too.
Yeah. Just because of his usage, they're going to lean on him a little bit. I don't think they're going to. I don't think it's going to be the Geno show anymore over there. I think they're going to obviously.
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, right. No, but I think they're going to lean a little more on the run game. Go back to what Pete Carroll's good at.
Yeah. Look, we've talked about him, but we haven't really discussed Aaron Jones. I've had a major issue with placing Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon to the point where I'm like,
I'm putting AJ Dillon over.
That's how it's been the last 3 years with that.
We keep thinking it's going to be AJ Dillon season, and then it just never happens.
But the time has come. That's my hot take. AJ Dillon over Aaron Jones.
I think they
I don't know.
I think they might have to.
That's been the one constant with that Green Bay offense, other than Aaron Rodgers. I think they've got to keep him. I think they've got to keep what they've got going. It could be AJ Dillon season. The quad father could come out, but I don't know. I think Aaron Jones has one more year. As much as I hate saying it, because I want to see AJ Dillon overtaken, I think he's got one more year.
Are we positive that Aaron Jones isn't just going to like turn into wide receiver 3 for them? And it's the only reason why I think that
I'm on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, it's the only reason why I think he's still going to be relevant is because of the pass catching ability. I do think AJ Dillon gets an uptick, but I think you'd be a fool to not count on Aaron Jones being a big part of what this year's going to be, especially for the Jordan Love extravaganza. Because I don't think they're going to just hand him the reins and go, "Hey, go light it up like Aaron did." Because then you're just going to welcome all of these crazy like comparisons.
Yeah.
And even then, Aaron Rodgers' first year wasn't the greatest. So,
yeah. Well, Ryan, who's the last guy you want to talk about?
So I've got Javonte Williams.
Yep,
I wanted to talk about him.
He's on my list too.
Yeah. He's in that
so
mid tier 2 range for me.
So I have been kind of keeping a close eye on him because I bought him midway through last season, and I paid a pretty high price for him and giving up Josh Jacobs for him and like a first. But I want to see him thrive this year, and obviously he's not. I don't know. I've got to look that up.
I think it got him Quentin Johnston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he had back to back. He went Bryce Young, then Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting to see how that trade pans out this year. But sorry, you Javonte. I didn't mean that.
I've been keeping up with Javonte, just seeing how rehab is going and everything. And from what I've been reading on him, he's ready to go like week 1.
Yeah,
and I know they might
freaky.
not throw him
it's
in,
freaky.
but that's one thing that I've noticed with them or with the Broncos. It's not like they've brought in a replacement. It's not like they've done like what the Jets did with Breece Hall and bring in Dalvin Cook and say, hey, he's not quite ready yet. Here, like, we got to bring somebody in to help him or to, keep the team going. So Javonte Williams might be a pretty good option if he's fully healthy. He might be an RB1.
And you're getting
in that
him,
RB1 tier.
And you're getting him 3 spots. I mean, not 3 spots, 3 rounds lower than
for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, you're getting him like 3 rounds lower than like ETN and J.K. Dobbins.
So I think he's got tremendous upside this year. If healthy,
that team is just going to be better.
Fully healthy. Yeah,
because
Denver is just going to be a better football team this year.
I think Denver's going to have to play through their running backs this year, to be quite honest with you. Last man standing is Courtland Sutton. Actually did just get word little Jordan Humphrey made the team. But you also have Marvin Mims. So that's kind of your top 3.
And Callaway.
Oh yeah, and Callaway.
Well, at least for the first couple of weeks,
until Judy comes back. Yeah, but
Judy will be back.
But think of who Perine is as a player. Perine is kind of like Brian Robinson a little bit, but he's a little bit more effective as a pass catching back. So I could totally see them just playing through their backs and then kind of slowly bringing Javonte in and then letting him go full speed week 5.
Yeah.
Well,
and Oh, go ahead.
Talking to Brian Robinson, the last thing I want to talk about before we close is don't sleep on Gibson.
I have Gibson in tier 2. Like I really have him low tier 2 right now.
So I think he's a low tier 2 guy that could push to high tier 2 and be maybe an RB2, but definitely a solid flex player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they could. Look at what's his name? The OC for the. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
the OC for the Commanders. The enemy. There you go. Bieniemy.
I told you, I'm always
Jarek. Yeah, with Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco, it could be one of those situations where Gibson is used like a Jerick McKinnon,
I did hear
that could be
meshing well with the team.
Wait, who?
Bieniemy.
Interesting.
Bieniemy is from the Andy Reid school of tough love. So that's kind of where it's coming from. But when you have
and it's all tough love when you suck.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're missing.
Yeah, and especially when you have like Tyreek Hill and Mahomes talking about trust the process here. He's going to get you right. You probably should listen to the 2-time Super Bowl champion. Just saying. But I definitely agree with Robinson and Gibson. I want to bring up a couple flex options for people that I think will be in the running as far as legitimate consideration. We speak of the Chiefs, Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, I think are very good flex options. I think McKinnon more so, but Pacheco is going to get run for sure.
McKinnon, if you're looking for explosive,
boomer
spike.
bust.
Yeah, he's very
it's a spike.
bust.
Yeah, he is very much boomer bust.
The next one is going to be David Montgomery, largely because we saw how the Jamal Williams role played, and
who's going to be Jamal and who's going to be DeAndre.
Well, DeAndre will only be DeAndre because that includes doing really well and getting hurt at the same time, and Jameer is Jameer.
And I want to also bring up a good flex position, Khalil Herbert.
Yep, that's a great pick.
Yeah, well, especially with D'Onta Foreman just got injured.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
he could lead that backfield.
Go to the rookie yet, Roschon Johnson.
Another
one,
good though.
Yeah, Roschon looks good. That's why I wanted to pick him. The one that I do think is interesting is also Kenny Gainwell, though I do think
not yet.
Eagles,
it's not his time.
He hasn't played as much, which is why that makes me think he might be the starting back. But that Eagles backfield is a mess. So the only way I say Kenny Gainwell is in flex consideration is if he has a stranglehold on that running back spot, which I don't think the Eagles are going to do. That one's to keep your eye on.
I think Swift takes over that backfield. That's my 2 cents on that. I know we're not Swift lovers here.
Who's Swift?
Who's
with that?
That's the episode.
That is an episode.
That is an
episode.
That is our extra long running back episode. Thank you all for coming to the end with us, listening to the research, listening to our top 24 running backs, if we're really going to talk about it here. You can find us on all platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube at Last Place FP. Next week, we are getting ever so close.
2 weeks.
Yep.
Well, a week and a half now, technically.
Week and a half till Chiefs Lions. Can't wait. We have one more episode to tell you about our tier list, which is going to be the wide receivers. You don't want to miss it. Get ready for your last minute drafts. Ethan, hit him with it.
Never forget. Sometimes you are right. Sometimes you're Ryan.
Have a good one, everybody, and we will see y'all next week, getting ready for week 1.
Or don't.
Or don't.